welcome to this new video for my channel, The Mental Traveler. I'm Caro Herrera, and today I'm going to be talking about a story called Camille, or The Lady of the Camellias, and some of its adaptations, particularly a movie called Moulin Rouge. This French classic was written by Alexandre Dumas Fils, who was the son of the famous author of The Count of Monte Cristo, The Three Musketeers, and many more, and the book was published in 1848. As to the movie, which is a musical romantic comedy and drama, it was directed by Baz Luhrmann and released in 2001. It stars Nicole Kidman, Ewan McGregor, Jim Broadbent, John Leguizamo, and Richard Roxburgh. Before I begin though, let me just say that this will be a video with spoilers, so beware. Since the movie is not a 100% accurate, faithful adaptation of the book, I'm going to briefly summarize both of their plots. The book is set in 19th century Paris and deals with a love story between Armand Duval and Marguerite Gautier. Armand is a young, handsome man of modest means, and Marguerite is a young, beautiful woman who also happens to be Paris' most famous courtesan. Despite this, Armand falls deeply in love with her and she with him. There are many elements against them though. One of them is that Marguerite is ill with consumption, and also, despite the fact that she loves Armand with all her heart, since she is highly in debt and accustomed to a luxurious life, she has to at times be with very wealthy men. This makes Armand insanely jealous more than once. Still, when Marguerite has decided to leave her past behind and start afresh with Armand in highly reduced economic circumstances, Armand's father begs her to give him up so that his family name is not tarnished by their union, which is endangering the chance of Armand's sister to get married into a respectable family. So Marguerite leaves Armand without telling him the real reason why, and he is devastated and tortures her by carelessly flaunting his new lover to her on several occasions. This strain helps to weaken Marguerite's strengths, and after Armand has left the country, she falls ill again and dies before he can return to her. After she is gone, Armand learns the truth of why she left him in a series of letters, and we see the effect her death and his tormenting actions toward her cause him. As to Moulin Rouge, while its plot is not exactly like this, it's just as good. It's also set in Paris, but in the last year of the 19th century, and their story revolves around the famous Moulin Rouge, a real-life nightclub and bordel. Here we follow Christian, who is a handsome, idealist English writer, as he arrives at the city of love, eager to experience that feeling for the first time. And when he meets the beautiful Satine, the most famous star of the Moulin Rouge, his wish is granted. Satine and Christian fall deeply in love as well, but just as with the Lady of the Camellias, there are factors working against them. First of all, there is this duke who desires Satine and who buys a Moulin Rouge and wishes for nothing more than for her to become exclusively his lover. She doesn't want to be with him though because of her love for Christian, who tries to cope with the jealousy and difficulties of the situation. Because since he is poor, he doesn't have anything to offer her but his love. With time though, Satine only cares about being with him, and when things get too much to cope with regarding the Duke, they plan to escape together. Before they can do this, though, the Duke threatens to kill Christian if Satine doesn't leave him, and so she breaks it off with Christian without telling him the reason why, hoping that her silence will drive him away from the Moulin Rouge and the power of the Duke into safety. In the end though, Christian and Satine end up together, but because she has been suffering from consumption all along, she dies in his arms, leaving him shocked, heartbroken, and in despair. Sometime after her death, Christian begins to write their love story down. I give both the book and the movie a 5 out of 5 stars review. The novel is short, and its plot is not ambitious when compared with other 19th century French classics. And yet, because it addresses issues of the human heart so well, I find it very moving. Regarding the book, you really get to see how the protagonists develop because of their love for each other. Because it is so true and deep that more than once I could feel it and I was crying. I think it's a poignant read, and it has a beautiful message, and I highly recommend it. In the next section, I'm going to say why I think Moulin Rouge is such a fantastic film, one of my favorites. But here I'll just say the following. I really love the way how at certain points it's just this big spectacular show full of color and light and costumes, music and people everywhere, all over the screen, that you just don't know where to look because everything's appealing to you. And yet it contains love scenes that are so personal and touching that in the blink of an eye you are transported into this very personal space as you watch two people fall madly in love with each other against all odds, and how love can transform them for the better. I was introduced to the story of Moulin Rouge when I was 10 years old, and I can still remember how that came to be. It was at night, and I was with my older cousin who loves Hollywood gossips, and she was telling me that she was upset because Tom Cruise had just broken up with Nicole Kidman and had instead started dating Penelope Cruz. I wasn't aware of who my cousin was talking about. So she showed me a picture of Tom and Penelope in a magazine, and then because she had just checked out a film with Nicole Kidman, she put a scene of the film to me, and I remember being really impressed by Kidman's beauty. To make a long story short, my cousin ended up falling asleep, but I stayed awake and I saw the whole movie. I remember thinking I'd never seen anything like it. Now here there was this gorgeous, movable feast, to sort of quote Hemingway, taking place before my eyes. Sure, I was dazzled by the costumes, the setting, the music, but what really made an impression with me was the love story. And to this day, I still feel like I did that night all those years ago whenever I rewatch Moulin Rouge. I still feel that the gorgeous Nicole Kidman and the very handsome Ewan McGregor gave such great performances that it really seems as if they utterly fall in love for true. So yeah, moving forward, Moulin Rouge basically made two very big impressions on me. It started me down the path of copying my cousin and learning as much as I could about Hollywood gossips, its actors and their private and public lives. But it also left me with a legacy of finding stories with star-crossed lovers as my favorite sort, especially when they can't end up together, when one of them has to sacrifice their love for the other's sake. But yeah, anyways, by the time I was 17, I had learned that Moulin Rouge was inspired by this book called Camilla, or The Lady of the Camels, and since I've loved reading classics since I was 14, I read this one as soon as I could. And because it's not a long book, it has an easy writing style, because I knew the story so well, I instantly loved the novel, and over the years that hasn't changed. I reread it last week for this review, and I devoured it in like 7 hours, bawling my eyes out by the end, even though I already knew the outcome of it. But anyways, over the years, I have seen other adaptations of The Lady of the Camels, but Moulin Rouge will always remain my favorite. Still, there are some pretty good versions out there. For example, the 1984 with Greta Scacchi and Colin Firth, or the one from 1936 directed by George Cukor and starring Greta Garbo and Robert Taylor. I particularly love this one because George Cukor also directed for a short while my favorite movie ever, Gone with the Wind, and also because it adds a scene that the novel doesn't have but which I find heartbreakingly perfect, and finally because of Robert Taylor. Well, I've never really cared that much for Garbo. I really do like Taylor. I've seen many films with him and he was just such a perfect, charming romantic lead. He was a young actor here, and I think it was one of his very first big roles, and so his inexperience and freshness echoes that of the character when it comes to falling in love for the first time. And then I like to compare his portrayal here with others he did later on, and see how much he grew up as an actor. When The Lady of the Camels was first published, it wasn't a very big hit, so the author rewrote it into an opera, which I am dying to see. It's very famous and perhaps you've seen it or heard of it. It's called La Traviata. For the moment though, I believe that this is all I have to say about this story. I hope you enjoyed my video of it. Please let me know if you did or if you didn't, because I would love to talk about it with you. In the description box below you can find a link to the novel's Goodreads page as well as a link to Moulin Rouge IMDb page. Anyways, I'm Caro Herrera, the Mental Traveler, and I hope to see you again very soon. Have a wonderful day wherever you're in the world. Adieu!